Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm going to be making a fun holiday card using this new stamp set from Kathy Zielske and Simon Says Stamp. This is the Coolest Yulest stamp set, and I'm going to be doing two different one-layer cards. These are going to be very simple cards with some repeat stamping. So the first card is going to be made out of some Desert Storm cardstock. This is the 100-pound version, and I've just scored that at 5.5 to create a top folding card. And then the other card is going to be made out of white cardstock, and I've done the same measurements, and except this is going to be a side folding card. And that white cardstock is Neenah Solar White. So I'm starting out with the Season's Greetings sentiment stamp, and I'm positioning that in my MISTI stamp positioning tool with the aid of a grid transparency sheet. That just helps it get on there completely straight. So I'm going to be using some pigment inks today. I'm using two different sets from Colorbox, and this is kind of like their petal ink pads. The first one is called Envy, and then the second set, which is a red set, is called Kiss. So I'm going to be using 4 colors from each of these sets, and I'm starting out with the darkest blue. I'm going to ink up that Season's Greetings stamp, and then I'll swing the door over and stamp it down onto my white cardstock. So I'm going to repeat this stamp. I'm going to have it go off to the side, and to get that positioning just right and not have to take it out of my MISTI tool, I'm going to swing that door over and kind of let it hover above the white cardstock, and then I used my fingers to slide that cardstock around until it was in the right position. I'm going to ink up that stamp one more time, and then I can go ahead and swing the door over, and that stamps it perfectly in line to the right of the original stamped area. So I'm going to do that same kind of technique using the ornament stamps from the stamp set. I've positioned the first one so it's right on the edge of this cardstock, and I'm going to use the next lightest shade, so it's more kind of like this dark aqua color, and I'll stamp that down. And then I'm going to do exactly what I did with that Season's Greeting stamp. I'm going to kind of let that hover over the top and position it in just the right area. And I'll make sure it's in the right spot, ink that stamp up again, and then I can stamp once more. So I did quite a bit of stamping on this first card, and I wanted to have those ornaments to repeat all the way across the card front. So I'm going to speed up the video here just so you can see the process, but we're not spending about 15 minutes just showing you the stamping. So I'm using the different colors of blue for this. You could definitely mix it up and not have it be the shades of the same color. You could have it be completely different shades, some reds and greens and blues or things like that. I think that would be really, really pretty. I've moved on to the other ornament, one of the other ornament stamps in the stamp set. This is the ornament that says Joy, and I'm using the next lightest shade, and it's more of a kind of a toned back pale aqua. And then I went to the very last ornament, this striped one that was just so cute, and I'm using the lightest kind of like sea foam color. So after I have all those areas stamped, I'm actually going to set this card aside and let that pigment ink dry, because pigment inks do take a longer time to dry compared to dye inks. This is going to stay wet for quite a while. So I've moved on to the other card, and this time I'm using some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock so it matches the card base. And I'm using that grid transparency sheet to position my stamp once again. And now I'm using the other kind of box of inks. This is the Kiss set. I'm starting out with the darkest red ink, and I'm going to stamp the word Mary. And I'm actually going to do the same thing I did on the previous card, and I'm going to be sliding that cardstock up into place and then repeat stamping with the same stamp. I've switched to a different color now. I'm using the next lightest red shade, and I'll go ahead and stamp this again. So in the past, you may have seen me do some repeat stamping using a MISTI tool and doing very precise moving of my cardstock so that everything is very evenly spaced. For these in particular today, I wasn't able to use the grid paper inside my MISTI tool to do the precise movements because it wasn't exactly in 1/4 of an inch segments, if that makes sense. It didn't match the size of grid on the grid paper. So I had to eyeball this and just try to get them as best that I could. I'm going to finish off with a very small Christmas stamp at the very bottom in the darkest red ink. So now I'm going back to that first card using a black pen and also a T-square ruler to draw in the strings on those ornaments. And I'm just extending that line from each ornament to the top of the card. And then I'm going to take my craft sheet and I put that over my work surface to protect it. And I'm using that lightest aqua shade and also an ink blending tool just to bring in a little bit of color on the bottom of the card. I'm also going to add a little bit of detail to this card by taking some Nuvo crystal drops in the color White Blizzard. And I'm going to just put this kind of glitter medium over the top of the stars. I did want to mention that I didn't do the stamping directly on the card bases because I couldn't fit the card bases inside the Misty tool very easily. But if you wanted to use a regular acrylic block, you could definitely do all this stamping directly on the card front. The last thing to do is to take these card fronts and adhere them to the card bases. So I'm using some Tombow Extreme adhesive. This is a really, really strong sticky adhesive. It's perfect for putting things down straight onto a card front. And I'm going to position that over the top of each card base and then press down evenly so that it sticks really, really well. So these are the finished cards for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I mentioned before, this is a brand new stamp set from Kathy Zielske, and she actually has a few more stamp sets that have come out recently as well. So you can check those out at SimasStamp.com. Thanks so much for joining me today for another card video, and I will catch you in another video very, very soon. Thanks for watching.